at the Thetford Township Board of Trustees at Thetford Hall, just in advance of the 6:30 meeting, already recessed after the closed session meeting. And they came back and they adjourned, but they didn't properly adjourn the meeting. And now, as you can see, there's some discussion and deliberation between members. That's what we have going on right here, as you can see in the video here. We've got three people talking to each other illegally. I'm documenting another violation of the open meetings act.
There's nothing in there that says we can be arrested. There's nothing. If it's said then under MCL blah blah blah, if you take this meeting, you can be arrested. And that's one thing. All that said, it's up to the discretion of the board. Whether they take it, so there's nothing about you taking. Go on. I also got common sense, and that's just stupid.
No, we don't allow common sense in that.
What's that?
Currently, the minutes are going to be streamlined.
That's true. It is true. Sure. You can legally do what you call a summary.
There's nothing to prevent this calendar As you can see here, we have 3 members confirmed.
You want to take your seat, please? We'd like the meeting to order for January 7th at 6:30. We'll call the meeting to order and stand for the pledge of allegiance. Moment of silence to observe military past and present. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You want to have a roll call?
Okay, Stan,
Yes.
Rachel. Here. Shelley. Here. Eric.
Here.
John.
Here.
Here. Shannon, I believe.
Mr. Chairman, as you go through this meeting, would you please remind the people to use their microphone?
Please use your microphone so the audience can hear. Approval of the minutes from the regular meeting on Monday, December 16th, pages 3 through 6. I'll make the motion to approve the minutes for December 16th. Second.
Yeah, I'll second.
Can I make an amendment?
No, I made a motion to approve the minutes
Oh.
from December 16th.
Do you have a correction?
Yeah, I have a correction. I believe I voted no on the support for FOIA coordinator. And then also, the ordinance that was passed, I believe I voted no on that. It says voting against 0.
Okay, I can check it.
Thank you.
And I need to add the adjournment time.
Actually, that's an issue that we need to resolve tonight, because when you approve the minutes, it needs to be approved at this meeting. So it really goes collectively. I was here, I don't remember your particular votes, but collectively, if that's how people remember it, that's how the minutes should be reflected.
Reflected with the change, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
So your motion is going to be amended to approve the minutes with corrections? Is that, do I got this right?
Correct.
And whoever supported that?
You supported, I think.
Then I'll amend mine also. All right. I'll make sure we got it.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no.
No.
I'm abstaining because I'm not here.
Yeah, no from Mary, abstain from Michelle. Okay, we'll move on to additions to the agenda. Does anyone have an addition?
I do, I would like to make a motion, add to the agenda that, the board can receive a summary from the attorney whenever there is, any type of conversation between a board member and the attorney, so that we are aware of all of what's going on. I don't know where we can add that in. But I would, the attorney would have a problem with something along those lines.
I'll make this, yeah, move this or.
Do we have a second to that?
Yeah, I'll support that.
Sure, I also have a motion, addition to the agenda.
And how was your motion, Rachel? The attorney to?
Motion for the attorney to provide the board members with a summary of any conversation between the attorney and board members, so that we're aware of issues taking place within our township.
And what was yours, Eric?
Do you want to roll call that first, or?
We have to add it.
We're adding it, and
Okay.
we'll approve it once we add it.
I'd like to add, that we, should set a planning commission date for our board, public hearing for, the addressment of the ordinance, against marijuana. We have an ordinance, that refers to marijuana being, immoral. I just think it's just, if we don't address that, I think
The
we're being
planning
responsible.
commission is addressed to meet the 23rd of January.
Okay, you wanna add that to the agenda?
It's already being publicized in the paper.
Sorry.
Yeah, at the last meeting, we approved to set up
Right,
a planning commission meeting for the ordinance.
Right, about the business. I'm talking about the one we currently have in the books that says marijuana use and all that is immoral. It's like, this is like from the 1970s, we put it in. This is pointless, we need to address that.
I believe you can address that at your public meeting for the ordinance on marijuana.
All right, I'll make it up. Thank you.
Well, I make a motion to accept the agenda with the addition of attorney summary for board members. All in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. All ayes. Public comments for agenda items only of 3 minutes each.
Rick Ryan. First of all, Mrs. Stanky, Mrs. A, I want to thank you for what you did tonight.
Mike's not on.
Oh, I'm sorry. First time I've been told I didn't have to say it.
It goes up towards you.
There we go. I've been looking back to the history of some of the things that have happened in the last 3 years. We have a serious problem in this township. We have a serious problem with the law. We have a serious problem with finance. We have a serious problem with proper procedures. We have a multitude of things coming down with the marijuana issue that could be solved relatively quickly, but there's always that kick it down the road idea. We have taken it upon this board to ruin families and lives. You start to think about it, some of the things that have been done in the last 3 years have been to destroy people's lives and ruin families. You all know what I'm talking about, so we're not gonna get into the details. At some point in time, this board collectively has to realize that what they're doing is wrong, that they work for the voters. The voters are who put you in those chairs, and it's the voters that can take you out. And again, I refer to Mrs. Stanky, Mrs. Ai, and thank you for what you did tonight. I believe you stood up, not only for the voters, but for yourselves tonight, and I thank you for that. Ladies and gentlemen, you got a lot of stuff that is coming down the line here. You have a multitude of lawsuits waiting in the wings. You have the marijuana issues that is gonna generate a multitude of lawsuits. It's time to start paying attention.
Thank you, Greg. Anyone else? We'll move on to supervisor's report. I hope everything went well through the Christmas and New Year's for everyone, and hope that the next year brings a new report for this township. Move on to the treasurer's report, Michelle.
We're making some progress with the auditors and hope to give a detailed report next year.
Thank you, Shelley. Nicole?
Probably the same thing Shelley said, we're working with the auditors out, so hopefully we'll have some balanced accounts and stuff pretty soon.
Thank you, Nicole. Approval of the bills, pages 7 through 9. Stan, you went through the bills pretty extensive, you wanna make a motion to accept the bills?
Yeah, I make a motion to accept the bills. There's, I'll make a motion right now.
Yes. Make that support that.
Oh,
So you stand? You made the motion, was there something you wanted to add to your motion?
But it has,
Oh,
that's supportable enough to make a comment, but the
Okay.
motion has to be seconded.
I'll support it.
John supports, okay. Any questions? Stan?
No, basically, there, you know, we went over the bills today, and, we're getting to work, it's coming along really good as far as regards to, having things explained and documented. And, I think it's doing real well so far. We're getting better.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Yeah, I requested to the clerk earlier prior to the meeting to, if we can have the check numbers, so that we were aware of what check numbers were. I'd like to see the sequence of them, and if there's any voided checks too, if we can have check numbers on the voided checks also. But other than that, it's pretty good.
Thank you. Okay. Anyone else? Okay, we'll do a roll call.
I did for, trustee Sankey, I did check the checks. And, there were voided checks, I seen the checks, there's one other check that still has to be found, but I'm sure I'll see it tomorrow. Okay.
Very good. We'll do a roll call vote.
Eric,
No.
John,
Yes.
Nicole, yes. Stan,
Yes.
Rachel,
No.
Shelley? No. Gary?
Yes.
Okay, motion passed.
Committee reports. John, do you have anything from the fire authority? I realize they meet
No, I don't,
next Monday.
yep.
Or the next Tuesday.
Next Tuesday at 4:30, we'll have one.
Okay.
Julie's out of town, so she doesn't have a library or park and rec report.
Shannon, did you have any reports for the senior center?
I didn't prepare one because I haven't
Okay.
been on the agenda for a few months, so.
Okay, well, we'll make sure that we bring it up next month at our meeting. Okay?
Sounds good.
All right. Move on to unfinished business of, Telerico's nursery. Actually, first. This is what pertains to the planning commission sent to us, their reference. I believe I printed out an extra slip for you of the minutes from the planning commission meeting. The recommendation was to deny the rezoning of Telerico's. Did you want to add something to that?
Well, we have an attorney here for the Tallericos, and he and I have spoken a couple of times this afternoon. I've also spoken with his partner on the same issue, but he wishes to make a record, and I'll jump in as appropriate.
Okay.
Thank you. My name is Attorney Rick Etherington. I represent the Tallericos. I did have a conversation earlier with your council in regards to what is being termed a rezoning. Just for the record, we disagree with that terminology. This is not technically a rezoning, it is a correction. The zoning simply needs to be corrected to reflect the historic use and the historic zoning. Drawing attention to the master plan, it clearly shows that the property was zoned at the time the master plan was adopted as general industrial. It was previously called Parker's Greenhouse and is referenced on page 9 and page 12 of the master plan, which was adopted, as I indicated, in '87, which was then, of course, reviewed and discussed on 11/9 of '92, 11/13 of 2000, 11/14 of '05, and again 11/8 of '10. And there's nothing in that master plan that has been changed that would change the zoning of Arthur's Greenhouse, which is now Tellerico's Nursery and Herbs, from general industrial to which it is now being called residential agricultural. So we're simply asking that the board make the correction to reflect the historic zoning and use. My understanding is from your counsel that he believes this is a rezoning, and since it's a rezoning, that it wasn't properly noticed for today's meeting, and that he wants to adjourn it from next month. If that's what the board chooses to do, I simply want it on record that we do not believe that that is what this really is. I don't think this is really a rezoning, even though technically we're rezoning from one zoning to another. This is simply a correction to reflect the historic use and the historic zoning. Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mr. Supervisor, my concern here is one of procedure. Your zoning ordinance says that rezoning has to follow a certain procedure laid out by state statute. State statute says, among other things, that there has to be notice of a public hearing, neighbors and others have to be given notice and an opportunity to be heard. That did not happen because, again, their request is not technically for a rezoning. But I don't know how else you characterize it. The Tallericos wrote a letter in November of last year that said the property is currently zoned residential, agricultural, or RA, and they're asking that it be changed to commercial or industrial. If that's not a rezoning, I don't know what is. It may be a rezoning based upon a clerical error, but it's still, you're changing from one to another. So my concern is if you were to entertain this tonight, there may be neighbors or folks that are going to come forward and say, listen, we didn't have an opportunity to give you our point of view. So that's what prompted me to call their offices to say that would be my advice to you, and I would leave it up to them whether they appeared here tonight or not. I just thought I would save them a trip, and I understand his reasons for wanting to come and make his pitch, but that is my position for what it's worth.
So, basically, we should table this until a future day.
Well, that is my recommendation. I wouldn't say just to a future date, because out of respect to, this is now the second month that their office has been here. I would suggest that it be scheduled for the February agenda, and I will circle back with them after this meeting if that's what happens, and make sure that they know that it's on the agenda. And I'd work with Nicole to make sure that notice gets out as it's supposed to get out.
Well, it's, yes,
John?
I just have a question related to that. Now, all this information went to the planning commission, and they looked at all this same ground we're covering, and their recommendation is to deny this application.
Right.
Because, so, I don't know why you need any further changes unless we thought we should resend it back to the planning commission to resend it, but they did this once.
Right.
So I don't know what has changed, and for me personally, I agree. It's obviously a rezoning. I mean, it's RA, it's been RA, and everyone recognizes it's RA, but now it doesn't want to be RA, I mean, it's gotta be a rezoning.
Well, when it went to the planning board, that's what it states here in the minutes, that's why I printed this out. Everyone, it says, wants to rezone this property from RA to agricultural to GC, which it was never general commercial. It was classified for tax purposes as general commercial. The neighbors were notified, and they showed up in droves that they did not want this to be a rezone. So I tend to go with John and say that I think we should go with the planning commission's recommendation. And if they want to apply for rezoning again, they can basically come do that.
Mr. Chairman, if I may?
Eric, you sit on the planning board.
Yeah, I do sit in the planning commission, and we did review this case. I was the dissenting vote on this decision. I did not agree with the planning commission on their findings, and I based that decision on two pieces of factual evidence that were brought forth, and there was no other evidence to conclude the otherwise, which was the, well, I should say that because there is other information concluding that that is an RA. However, as this attorney referred to as page 9 and page 12 of the master plan, that it does not describe their property or the use of that property the way that we are identifying it. It clearly identifies it as commercial property. And that comes to a great conflict of this township. I think that we have to somehow come to a decision on that, because we basically have materials, factual materials at this township, giving us conflicting information. So I think this is going to be a challenge.
I'd just like to add one point here.
Okay, John?
And I would say when the master plan calls for a general commercial, it's a planning. Now, if you would take some of our industrial and commercial areas now, they still have residents in there. And when those residents move, it will become that. But it doesn't mean that every single parcel was gonna be that. It means that you'd like to put it here. And it's not an all-inclusive document that says that's what's gonna happen. It's just my opinion.
And there are clear differences between land use and zoning. Land use is done by special land use. It comes with planning, they get a special land use, it's approved, it's sent to the board, and it pertains to partners. I believe maybe the ball was dropped that Telerico's didn't have to come after they purchased the property, because this special use does not go with the property, it goes with the owner. And when they sold the property, it didn't get ran past the board for him to have a special use. He just went right on to business as the same business was there in the past. And I think that's created a lot of confusion with this. So I hope we can clear it up somehow for him, but I'm not seeing it happen tonight.
When did he purchase the property?
I believe it was 2004.
So when he purchased the property, he purchased it under agriculture.
Yes, and then he applied for a homestead, which is residential use.
And now he wants to go back to commercial.
Well, it never was.
Or to
It was a
commercial.
special use, residential.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, the homestead exemption still could take place at commercial property if there's a residential building. And the zoning board of appeals did make a ruling on that a couple of years ago with the Stanislaus case.
It needed to be zoned commercial, it was not zoned commercial.
Well, I'm not saying whether it is or isn't. I'm just saying that the homestead exemption that Rachel brought up, they can apply for that even though if it was commercial property or if it wasn't. Either way, they can apply that. I just want to make that known to everybody on board.
Michelle?
There seems to be a lot of confusion. We do refer to the Headley Amendment as being a homestead, but technically it is called a PRE, which is a principal residence exemption. And that means that is your principal resident and their residence, and therefore you can apply for that PRE, which is a deduction in 18 mills. There is a homestead credit that you can apply for on your Michigan income tax, which based on income or I know renters can be included in that also, but they are two separate issues. And I guess it's all of our fault because we always say, did you apply for your homestead? It's technically not, and legally not a homestead, it is a PRE, principal residence exemption. So there's two different issues there. I just wanted to clear that up because that seems to be a lot of confusion today.
Thank you, Sean. Would you like to make a motion and we accept it?
Mr. Stevens, may I make one last comment, please?
Sure.
I just want to clarify that if you actually read the master plan, it doesn't talk about proposed use as industrial for Parker's Greenhouse. It identifies it as currently being zoned as industrial when the master plan was drafted. That's, I think, where we have our bone of contention. It was industrial. It was zoned industrial, and the master plan identifies that. And that's what we tried to point out. And so that's why we're asking for a correction, because it was clearly zoned industrial per the master plan.
Why aren't you asking for it to be zoned industrial? than commercial?
The actual application asks that it be rezoned to reflect the proper historic zoning and use. We're not asking for any change of use. We're just asking for the proper zoning.
Shelley?
Okay, I see in the, planning commission minutes, and I'm not familiar with this, but at one time after the property, if it was zoned, it's my understanding that it was classified, and that's another difference that people need to understand. You can live in a property that is zoned residential, zoned agriculture, however, it is classified as, commercial. I'm not gonna point anybody out, but the beauty shop across the street is zoned one thing, but it is classified commercial because she operates, she came, asked for a special use permit. My question would be, who initiated the change in the zoning to make it residential commercial at this time?
Good question.
Who initiated that change? It had to have had a change. If what you say is true, it's zoned industrial, it was at one time zoned industrial and whatever. At some point in time, somebody had to initiate a change in that zoning to the residential, commercial, whatever it is right now.
Well, our client didn't do it, and we're unaware if the Parkers did it at some point, and the township apparently has no records to reflect it ever being changed.
So that when he bought it, it was the commercial, residential, correct? When he bought it, then if he didn't initiate it, he bought it that way, correct? I just wanna make sure I understand.
Well, that's correct. Whatever it's zoned now is what it was when he bought it, but what we're saying is that that's not what it's supposed to be. Based on the historic use and the data presented in the master plan.
He never initiated any changes.
He did not. He's just trying to get it zoned the way it was properly, should be zoned.
John?
Well, I'm just, and whoever dropped this ball, I don't know, but generally, once that sale happened, he would have applied for a special use permit, just like the business he was referring to. It had went through the same process with the 300.
Right.
We'd have sent the residents, they'd have had the public hearing, and it would have been redone. So, I guess, I don't know why you would make an exception when we require everyone to go through that same process. And, you know, and I'm not saying that maybe we dropped the ball, we should have got at that time and said, what are you doing? But, you know, we didn't, and he didn't, but all this time, it's not zoned that. So,
It would have reflected in the minutes somewhere if it would have been done.
Yeah.
That's the way.
I'm going about that, obviously.
I would like to make a motion that we accept the planning commission's denial of rezoning of the property to general commercial.
I'll support that.
Shelley?
I know.
Attorney General, you talked about the public hearing. If the planning commission denies it and it comes to the township board, would the public hearing be required for people to come in and object?
That to me is an open issue. I always err on the side of caution, especially when it comes to zoning, and that's why I recommended that the notice be given. But it certainly could be read both ways, that you can proceed without a public hearing. Again, I always prefer, in cases of close calls, err on the side of the public hearing.
Okay. Thank you.
Do a roll call
Stan?
Read again, tell me what you.
vote. The motion was to accept the denial of the rezoning from the planning commission. That's what we did, is they denied.
I'll accept that.
That's a yes.
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 Okay, Rachel?
No.
Shelley?
Yes.
Eric?
No.
John?
Yes.
Nicole? Yes. Gary?
Yes.
Motion passed.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay, to hire a part-time code enforcer for up to 20 hours, possibly less, to advertise at $14 per hour for a temporary position as code enforcement. We would like to advertise for that. Well, temporary, part-time, whatever. Temporary means it could go to the next. There is an election next year, we don't know who's gonna be supervisor, so he may find someone else he wants or whatever. About a year.
We have a lot of complaints,
Do we have what?
a lot of complaints on Wednesdays.
We have a few.
Enough for 20 hours a week.
No, it can be a lot less than that, that's up to, depending on what happens. Doesn't necessarily mean 20 every week, it means that we could use 20 if we need.
Is that second?
Pardon?
Someone second first.
No.
I don't think a motion.
We didn't make a motion.
No, we haven't made a motion, this was just the suggestion so far.
Oh, well, I'll second this, so we can talk about it.
Okay, well, I'll make the motion then that we advertise to hire a code enforcer part-time, up to 20 hours if needed. John, second.
Yeah, second. Now,
Okay.
you know, and I guess I'd like to see add in that moment, in that motion, excuse me, that, that candidate would be brought back to the board and approved by the board. You okay with that?
Sure.
Okay with that?
Sure.
Then I'll amend my motion to add that.
Well, we will interview what we get for applicants,
Yeah.
and then we will, see what, who we think.
Yeah, I just want, that's all, I was concerned, I want to bring back to the board, so,
Yeah.
so that, everyone has a vote on that candidate.
Shelley?
Who would this person report to? Because I know right now our code enforcement goes through our police department. Is it, they would go through the police department with the code enforcement? Or-
Actually, through the supervisor.
So you're, so, let me just see if I can run through how this works. Let's say you get a complaint about trash or rubbish or somebody's dog. This is what you would send out this guy, and then you would document, you send him out. And he
If
would-
I didn't need to send Officer Apples, yes.
Okay, so that's how that would work.
Officer Apples handles some
And he could-
complaints depending on the complaint.
And he could also be used in our, in applications for our marijuana, anything that we do,
Correct.
inspections or anything?
Correct.
Okay,
Stan?
Yeah, we've talked about this afternoon, and I was thinking about it. And, you know, we have a police officer. I'd rather hire a part-time police officer to do the enforcing, because then you're basically a 20-hour part-time. And it could be used for that, and it could be used also for, you know, what we need for the police department.
I guess we can see who applies. It could be, yes.
Okay, that's what I'm saying, but are we going to just go with an ordinance enforcer? Because I think when you have an officer carries a little more, the position is more respected than when somebody just comes in with, you know, no, basically, knowledge on the hand of public.
John?
I was just wondering if I could put Eric on the spot here and ask him about that. Sorry. Because Dan makes a good point. I mean, if we could incorporate it together, so I just want your feeling, what you thought about that.
I guess the only issue you're gonna have is if you want another officer, the training that's gonna go into that, who you're gonna hire. You know, it's not this. You know, as far as code enforcement, you know, I mean, you could hire a code enforcement officer, but obviously I would want another police officer. Again, like I said, the money, the hiring process, stuff like that, I don't have to worry about quite a few things.
So,
Me being by myself right now, I think you're probably better off with hiring another part-time officer to help, you know, and that is probably something we could.
What we've had problems in the past is the officer doesn't want to work 3 hours a week, or 4, or
Well,
not
that's-
20
that
or
might-
40, they don't want to work.
I'm just thinking maybe he could.
And that's what the difference would be as far as I'm concerned.
Well, perhaps you could, maybe you could see if there's someone to be interested in applying.
Yeah, I mean, pay-wise, all that's gonna take a factor. Hourly-wise, if you're only gonna offer
Yeah, this is $14 per hour.
What would a,
Right, you're gonna have a hard time trying to find a part-time police officer for $14 an hour.
Correct.
Let me ask you this, if we had a part-time officer, would he be willing to make your scale when he's working for you, that scale, and could he make this scale? Could we accounting-wise pay him, like, on that part, and the rest of the time he'd be your scale, would that be more acceptable?
You're saying pay a part-time police officer part-time wages when he's an officer, and then.
Yeah, you would pay him for scale all the time, but let's say, the odd time you don't need him, here he's got him out doing an inspection, would that be something you think would be acceptable to somebody or not? I don't know, I mean.
It would be kind of difficult to.
So we'd have to get to the scale for one person.
Yeah, I
Just
believe we're
curious.
gonna have to.
I got a question, you guys, you've been doing some ordinance enforcement.
Correct.
Okay, so, one of the things we don't have is a log on what you are doing, and I have not seen anything come through the board about what your duties are, and to report to us of what you're doing through the day. And I think that's critical that we get that, because unfortunately, we don't know if you have extra time or not. If you are busy, I think the board should be aware of exactly what, you're doing out there, and what what you feel is important.
Well, I've offered monthly reports to you guys and gave them to you before in the past. I mean, I guess I'm not really clear on what you're asking.
Well, I haven't seen them. I guess that's the thing, I don't know where they're at, so I think.
Well, I can always give you one, that's never been an issue.
Okay, but.
I've never been asked before in the past, so if it's something you're asking now, then I can definitely do that for you,
Yeah.
but.
Okay.
Before in the past. I've never
Hey,
been asked.
Shelley has a question here.
Sure.
I just have one thing to say, because this is controversial, we've always had our police department do our code enforcement. The one thing that I want to see before we do anything is a job description, and what this person, if we hire them, whether they're a police officer or not, I'd like to see a job description approved by this board prior to doing this, so that everything's clear for everybody.
The last code enforcer didn't have one?
The last code enforcer was through the police department, was our police chief, and Tom Culture before that was our code enforcer.
I'll take my motion off the table and table this to.
That's all I'd like to see is a job
I got
description.
no problem with that, we'll just put it off again. That's fine. Withdraw your second.
Yeah, I'll withdraw my second.
Okay, we'll table this to.
But I do think, I still think we should bring it back up, and maybe with, dig up a job description. I appreciate it, Aaron, thanks for doing it.
And Mr. Supervisor, just to be clear, you're not tabling it, you have withdrawn your motion, and John has withdrawn his second, so there's really nothing in front of you tonight.
Okay, thank you. Okay, and C was attorney summary for board members, talking with the attorney, I believe, is what she's looking for. Do you want to explain what you think is happening, which you're not getting?
Oh, it's not that I think anything happens. When I first came on this board, the prior attorney, we would get a short summary whenever there was communication between a supervisor, and I feel like I just feel like we don't know everything until we get our board packet. So I think if we were stayed in the loop a little bit along the way, if there was ever any conversation between you or the clerk, which I know majority talks to, or any other board member for that matter, or any residents, I just feel like the board should be informed, and we should kind of know what's going on so that we're not blindsided.
I think the attorney's
Got
been
something on the
very
agenda.
well, he's been the
Oh,
same
he's great.
attorney since we.
He's great.
Well, Mr. Supervisor, let me speak to that issue. I have zero issue with that, none whatsoever.
Right.
It protects me as much as it protects you, because I don't want any member of this board thinking that, I'm in the pocket of one person. I try to give you the advice that, as I see it. And so if I can't tell all of you what my opinion is on a subject, then I think there's a larger problem. So, what I would do is, and what I do with other clients, is a monthly report. It may not go into all the detail for obvious reasons, but any one of you can call when you get that and say, tell me a little bit more about this, and I'm happy to have that conversation.
It'd be great.
Shelley?
And I don't think Rachel's inferring that there's anything wrong. I think her being a new board member, it's more of an educational information. That's how new board members learn, is when they get information like that and can be able to process it. So I think it's more of an educational, request versus, you know, a problem issue request.
And there are also MTA phone numbers that you can call on trustees with different issues, also other
Oh.
than just attorney.
Yeah, no, I know.
But, yeah,
But, you know, I do like the brief outline, but in interest of saving money, you know, I'd be happy if you just emailed it to me, and then, you know, if that's not a problem.
Yeah,
And
I
Rachel,
prefer email too.
That way, you know, if you do the summary, you know, maybe somebody doesn't want, it, but I can just get it, and,
if you look at Mr. Gilmer's bills, he will do a brief summary of what has taken place.
and that's
through the
probably
month.
fine, just a copy of that.
But, you know, I'm gonna make it easy, because you shouldn't have to go through the bills. What I'm telling you is, I've got no issue.
Okay.
I'll talk to you about, you know, how best to get it to you, in what form and all of that, but in terms of telling you what I'm doing and who I'm talking to, no problem.
Yeah, just be brief, because, you know, I know it's your hourly rate, I'm trying to be brief.
No, I understand.
Brief. Okay, I'm done.
I guess we got that pretty well resolved without a motion in a second. Okay, we'll move on to new business.
Or we're not gonna motion that? Oh, perfect.
He's gonna
Okay.
take care of it for us.
All right, thank you. Appreciate that.
Okay, proclamation of school of choice, and this is done each year that we agree with, the others, 40s with the proclamation that we agree on the school of choice for people of Thetford. I'll make the motion that we go with the proclamation of school of choice. There is paperwork, I believe. That was quite a detailed thing. Yeah, well, we did it last year, I believe, too, and it just comes up every year at the beginning of the year, so. Supporting all the schools of choice.
So it's just a letter of supporting, you know, the public school system, is that what you're doing?
Correct. Correct. Second it?
I'll second it.
And we'll- all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Okay, all ayes. And B is the land bank. I believe you had something on that, Shelley? Pages 10 through 15.
Right. The one page are properties that are owned by the land bank. And the land bank, as you can see by the letter, doesn't pay for special assessments. But I need board approval to be able to remove those special assessments, so that's what I'm asking. There's only 2 of them, the 2 that are starred, they have, special assessments on them.
Correct. You want to make the motion of the take this?
I'll make a motion that we remove the garbage and public safety from parcel 17-18-300-020, and to remove streetlight assessment and public safety from 17-30-551-016.
And I will second that.
I just want to make sure I understand, these properties are in the land bank, and is there currently buildings on them, or
Oh, yeah, they're,
so we're just removing it because?
we have to remove it because, as you can see by the letter, land bank doesn't pay those. Once land bank takes a property over, they don't pay special
So it's just gonna be out there delinquent if we don't?
Actually, the house on her road has been gone.
Okay, so one of them's already demoed.
Right.
Okay. Right.
We had a motion and a second. Did Dan?
Yeah, is the property owned by the land bank now?
Yes, they don't pay this.
Why don't they? I do, I see it.
I know, but land bank is exempt from it.
Well, I don't see why they should be. Everybody here pays an assessment, and it's killing us, man, I'll tell you, everybody puts assessments on us, and we don't even get a vote on some of it.
I'll give you the paperwork and you can go down to land bank and try and collect it. How's that?
I'm just
You
gonna
wanna
say-
try? You guys wanna go for it?
No, I'll tell you
I'll
what,
get
I
it for you. I'll get you
tell
the
you,
paperwork.
I'm a little tired of looking at that bill, and the assessment is higher than my taxes on the property I own.
Any other discussion on this?
Okay, Stan,
No.
Rachel,
Yes.
Shelley,
Yes.
Eric,
Yes.
John.
Yes.
Oh, yes, Gary.
Yes.
Okay, motion passed.
Okay, we will entertain brief public comments for 3 minutes each.
I'd like to thank the board for coming out here today and taking care of the business for Thetford Township. Stan, I'm talking, can you look at me, please? I want to know why, when we come up here to talk, we don't get you people looking at us. That you are looking down. I don't know if you're looking down at your phone. I don't know if you're looking down at paperwork. I don't know if you're writing down Eugene's an asshole or what you're doing. But when we come up here to speak, just like when we watch you guys, when you talk to us, I expect to be looked at and recognized, and I expect everybody that comes up to this podium to be looked at and recognized. Thank you.
Thank you, Eugene.
I don't have a report tonight, but I did want to say thank you to the Living Waters, Buell Lake, Assisted Elderly Adult Foster, I don't know what their whole name is, but anyway, they sponsored our Christmas program, and I wanted to give them a little shout out, so thank you.
Thank you, Shannon.
Evening. As you all know, all of you know, I'm on the planning commission.
Can't hear
Wait,
you.
can you hear me now? Because I always have this problem, that I'm on the planning commission, and one of the things that I had voted against the Talricos being their zoning changed. And one of the reasons being is because I felt that the only evidence that they provided for us, any supporting evidence, was only in a book that said that it was at one time zoned industrial. And I felt as though that was a misprint, and to change their zoning based on one misprint, when we, on Genesee Road, we only had 3 businesses. We had the bar, we had the high back, and we had Parker's Greenhouse. And I felt as though somewhere along the line, whoever transposed it into the book got it confused with high back, which was industrial property, and somehow it ended up being on Parker's, the old Parker's Greenhouse. There was no supporting evidence of any industrial activity ever taking place on that property. You know, so there was no reason to go back to a historic zoning or whatever it was based on one piece of evidence. I didn't even, the master plan didn't even make it clear that it was a zone of industrial, for industrial use. And in my book, the highest or most industrial zoning that we have is a LM, which is a limited manufacturing. There's no term industrial used in the book. So that's why I voted it down, was because I felt as though they were basing it all on just one a piece of evidence that was more than likely a misprint. So that's why I voted it.
Thank you, Rose.
Good evening, Richard Russell, Lake Road. One thing I want to bring up, I've noticed tonight, this is a maintenance issue. The door out here coming into the hall is broken. If you open the thing up and you let it go, it stays open. I noticed this when Gary unlocked everything today, and he unlocked it and kind of sort of pulled it closed, but it didn't close all the way. And then he came to the inner door here and using the handicap button, that sat open for a couple of minutes with the outside door wide open, letting the heat out, letting the cold in. Shouldn't take a whole lot to fix that, but it's something that needs to be brought to the attention of everybody here. Other than that, as far as the zoning commission, if it was transposed incorrectly, that's fine. There should be steps taken to correct that. I've lived in this township for 63 years. I don't ever remember there ever being anything industrial there on that property at Parker's. So it was coded wrong to begin with, and it should be corrected. But unless I miss my guess, different codes command different tax rates. And it should be corrected. And what Telringos is asking for probably should be taken care of. Thank you.
We'll move on to board member comments. Barry?
I'd like to thank everyone for coming out, and again, please be patient with the board. We have a lot of decisions to make in the future for 2020. I can assure you that there's been a lot of our issues have been caused by just playing catch up after not having a clerk for so long, and amongst other issues. So with that, thank you for all being patient. Thank you for coming out. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick. Stan?
Yeah, I apologize if I haven't been watching you speak to me, but normally what we're doing is jotting down what you're saying and keeping it as a record. But hey, I listen with my ears. I don't have to listen with my eyes. I know who you are, and I like to put down what you people say as a reference. So thanks for coming. Thanks for pointing that out.
Thank you, Stan. Rachel?
First and foremost, my heart goes out to the troops. I know we have a lot of them going overseas right now. We're kind of in a situation. Also, I'd like to thank everybody for coming out. And Ralph, I thank you for coming up to the podium. I wish I would have talked to you prior to the meeting. Little details like that make a difference, and I just really didn't understand where that was headed. So I was a little concerned about making that decision myself. I hope everybody drives safe, and I do know that our Park and Recs wasn't here, but I know there isn't a meeting for a couple more months, but be aware, I'm sure they'll post about the ice rink. It should be going up in the next few weeks if it gets cold enough, so just a heads up, take your kids out for some ice skating before it gets sunny.
Thank you, Rachel. John?
I don't have anything other than, I'm optimistic for 2020, so, we hear all negative and down, but I actually think there are good things going on, and I'd like to look at the half full, so I think Thetford Township is good in 2020.
Thank you, John. Shelley? Nicole?
I want to thank everybody for coming. I'm glad that we have Johnny Gilman here with us. Things are moving along. I think that, I agree with John. I think that things are moving in a positive direction. We're doing a lot to get things taken care of, and so we can put the township back where it needs to be. And I'd like to offer my condolences to the Bloss family and the loss of their grandson. It's been a tough road for everybody that has had a bond with that young man. He was a pretty special guy, and so I just want them to know that we're thinking of them. That's all.
Thank you, Nicole. John and Nicole said it well, and everyone have a good night. I make a motion to adjourn.
Support.
Am I gonna take back everything you said?
We need a vote.
We all said yay.
All in favor, say yes.
Yay.
Yes.
Yes.
Am I gonna take back everything you said about it? Attorney.